In the far edge of the galaxy, there was a world that no one dared to touch. Its name was Vanar, but most called it the alien Deathworld. Every species in the galaxy spoke of it in whispers, as if saying the name too loud would bring danger. Legends said that storms could melt ships before they landed, jungles swallowed armies whole, and shadows in the dark carried voices that were not their own. To the galaxy, it was a cursed place, a place of certain death. For centuries, alien empires sent probes and machines to scan Vanar. None ever returned. A probe might enter the atmosphere, but before it could send data, lightning storms ripped it apart. Some drones were swallowed by the thick jungle, their signals vanishing as if something had pulled them underground. Others caught only one strange sound before they were destroyed, a low hum like a heartbeat, echoing from the planet itself. That sound terrified even the bravest explorers. They called Vanar not only a death world, but a living nightmare. The Galactic Council made laws to keep ships away from the planet. They marked it as a forbidden zone. But rules never stopped human curiosity. While the other species feared, humans looked at the unknown and felt a strange pull. Where others saw death, humans saw a challenge. And so the decision was made. A human crew would land on Vanar when the news spread. Laughter filled the council chambers. Tall insectoid speakers clicked their mandibles in disbelief. Scaled reptilian senators shook their heads, saying, "They will last only minutes," other species whispered. "The humans are mad, their bones will join the ruins," but still, the human mission prepared. They were explorers, soldiers, and scientists, all chosen because they were willing to risk everything for discovery. The day of the landing arrived. The human ship, the Resolute, entered orbit above the burning skies of Vanar. From above, the planet looked both beautiful and deadly. Clouds swirled like angry oceans, storms flashed with green lightning, and vast jungles stretched like dark seas of trees. Even from space, the planet seemed alive, watching, waiting, daring them to try inside the ship. Tension filled the air. The captain, a woman with sharp eyes named Commander Hale, stood before her crew. She knew every species was watching, waiting for humans to fail, but her voice was calm, steady, and unbroken. "Remember," she said, "this world is dangerous, but so are we. We do not run from shadows, we face them." The crew nodded. Fear in their hearts but steel in their eyes, the descent began. As the ship broke through the upper atmosphere, flames licked at its hull. The storm screamed around them, shaking the vessel, tearing at its wings. Systems flickered, alarms blared, but the humans did not panic. Hands moved quickly over controls. Voices shouted commands, every member doing their part. Through chaos and fire, the Resolute pushed on. Other species would have turned back, but humans gritted their teeth and held their course. When the ship broke free of the storm and pierced the lower sky, the jungle came into view. It was endless, a sea of green stretching beyond the horizon. But this was no ordinary forest. The trees were twisted, their roots rising like claws, their branches dripping with strange glowing vines. The ground below moved with shapes, beasts, shadows, things too large to be normal. The crew stared through the windows, silence filling the ship. It was not just a jungle, it was a battlefield waiting for them. The landing was rough. The ship slammed into a clearing with thunder. The ground shook as if the world itself protested their arrival. Smoke poured from the engines. Sparks danced across the hull, but the ship held together. The humans had made it. They had landed where no other species dared. Yet even in that moment of success, unease filled the air. The jungle had gone quiet, too quiet. As if it was listening to them, the air was thick, heavy, filled with a strange electric charge. Every breath tasted of metal and ash. Commander Hale stepped onto the ramp, her boots touching the soil of Vanar. The first human to set foot on the alien Deathworld. She looked out at the towering trees, at the shadows shifting in the distance, and for a moment, she felt the weight of all eyes in the galaxy on her shoulders. She raised her rifle, scanned the dark, and spoke to her crew. "Welcome to Vanar," she said, her voice steady. "Let's see if this world is as deadly as they say." The crew followed, their weapons ready, their hearts racing. Each step into the jungle was like walking into the mouth of a beast. Every sound made them tense. Every shadow made their fingers tighten on triggers. But the humans did not stop. They moved forward, step by step, into the unknown, far above, in stations and ships. Alien leaders watched the transmission, their voices filled with disbelief. "They are still alive," one whispered. "How is this possible?" The hook had been set. The galaxy watched as humanity entered the forbidden world, the death world that terrified all species, and yet for the first time in history it was no longer empty. It now carried the footsteps of mankind. The jungle of Vaynar was not like the forests of Earth. It was darker, heavier, and alive in ways that no one understood. When the human crew stepped away from their ship, the ground beneath them pulsed faintly, as if the soil itself had a heartbeat. The air was thick, filled with glowing spores that drifted like dust, but every particle seemed to watch, to follow, to breathe. It was not a place of life. It was a place of warning, a place that whispered, "Leave while you still can." Commander Hale raised her hand, ordering silence. Every step forward echoed in her helmet, the crunch of boots on roots too loud in the endless quiet. Her soldiers scanned the shadows, but there were too many. The jungle was alive with movement, yet nothing could be seen. Bird-like cries echoed, then stopped suddenly, as if the jungle itself hushed to listen to the humans. The silence was worse than the noise. Scientist Dr. Miles knelt by a tree. Touching its bark, the surface was wet, sticky, and when he pulled his glove back, a faint red smear clung to his fingers. "Not sap," he whispered. "This feels like blood." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Already the legends of Vaynar seemed real. Deeper they went, marking their path with scanners and beacons. Though each time a beacon was placed, the jungle shifted strangely, roots curling around the metal as if trying to hide it. The forest was swallowing their trail, refusing to let them leave. It was then they heard it, the whisper. At first it was like wind, moving softly through the leaves, but as they paused listening, the sound grew clearer. It was a voice low and broken, speaking in no language they knew, yet heavy with meaning. The whisper slid through their comms. Echoing in their helmets, some of the soldiers flinched, pulling off their headsets, but the voice was not inside the machines. It was in the air, in the soil, in the bones of the trees. Commander Hale kept her weapon steady, her voice firm. "Stay calm. It cannot hurt us if we do not break," she said, though her own heart pounded like a drum. The whispers rose, dozens of voices now, carrying through the forest like ghosts. They were not screams of warning nor calls for help, but something stranger, like prayers whispered by the dead. As the crew moved forward, their lights revealed shapes carved into the roots, symbols worn by age but sharp enough to be seen. Circles within circles, jagged lines that twisted like claws. Dr. Miles studied them with wide eyes. These are not natural, something lived here before. Something intelligent. But why had it left, or why had it been destroyed? The jungle shifted again, this time with sound. From the shadows came rustling, fast and close. The soldiers snapped their rifles up, lasers cutting through the thick leaves. Then a shape leapt out, a creature half hidden by the dark. Its skin was black like stone, its limbs long and sharp. Its eyes glowing with pale green light. For a moment time froze. The humans staring, the beast hissing low. Then, before they could fire, it vanished back into the jungle, moving faster than sight. They had seen something alive, something that should not exist. The whispers rose louder. The jungle pulsed harder, as if the entire planet reacted to their presence. Commander Hale forced her voice steady. "Stay together, nothing breaks the line." Nothing. The crew tightened their formation, fear in every movement, but still they pressed forward. Hours passed like days, the jungle never changing, every tree like the last, every shadow hiding something. Fatigue set in, but fear kept them sharp. It was then that they found the ruins. A clearing opened, trees bending away from a massive stone structure half buried in roots. The walls were cracked, but symbols covered every surface, glowing faintly as if alive. The whispers grew louder here, echoing around the ruins like a choir of unseen voices. Dr. Miles' hands shook as he touched the stone. "These are not warnings," he breathed. "These are graves. This whole ruin is a tomb." The crew stood in silence, realizing they were not just explorers. They were intruders walking across the graves of a lost species. The whispers deepened, no longer just voices, but cries of anger, grief, and hunger. Something had died here long ago, but something else had remained. Suddenly, one of the soldiers screamed. He dropped to the ground, clutching his helmet, eyes wide in terror. "The voices," he shouted. "They're in my head. They're calling me." Commander Hale pulled him back, her grip like steel. "Stand firm, soldier. Do not listen," she ordered. But the whispers only grew stronger. For every human step into the jungle, the voices grew closer, as if the planet itself tried to crawl into their minds. The crew retreated into the ruin for shelter. their lights cutting across dark halls filled with roots and broken stone. Every wall carried the same marks, the same warnings, and deeper inside they found something worse. Skeletons not human but alien, tall and thin, their bones twisted as if broken by the planet itself. Hundreds of them stacked along the walls like sacrifices. The whispers here were unbearable, shaking the air, rattling their minds. It was as if the dead themselves spoke through the ruins. And then silence. The whispers stopped. The jungle went still. Not a sound, not a breath. The crew froze. Their weapons raised, hearts racing. For silence on Venar was not safety. Silence was danger. It meant something was watching, something waiting. And deep in the shadows of the ruin, two pale green eyes opened, glowing like fire in the dark. The glowing eyes in the ruin did not move at first. They just watched, unblinking, burning with a light that was not natural. The human crew stood frozen, every weapon raised, every heartbeat echoing in their ears. Then the sound came, low and deep. Like stone grinding against stone, the creature stepped forward, its body half covered in roots and soil, as if it had grown from the earth itself. Its limbs were long, clawed, and its chest pulsed with the same faint green light as the jungle. It was not an animal, not a machine, but something in between. A child of the planet itself. The humans opened fire. Beams of light tore across the ruin, cutting into the creature's skin. But the jungle screamed back, the very walls of the ruin shaking, roots tearing from the ground and lashing like whips. The world was fighting. The planet itself was alive, and it was angry. Commander Hale shouted orders, her voice sharp as steel. Fall back, keep formation, do not scatter. The crew pulled together, pushing toward the exit, but the jungle was ready. Outside, storms burst open the sky. Rain fell like acid, sizzling where it touched metal. The wind howled with voices, not whispers this time, but screams. The world itself was screaming. The soldiers fought to protect the scientists, cutting through vines that moved like serpents. Every tree seemed to reach for them, every branch turning into a weapon. Roots split the ground under their boots, trying to drag them down into the soil. It was not just the beast, it was the entire planet. Venar did not want them here, and it would not let them go. Dr. Miles stumbled as a root wrapped around his leg. Pulling him down, two soldiers rushed forward, blasting the root apart, hauling him back to his feet. He gasped, his voice shaking. It is not random, it is coordinated. Like a living mind, Commander Hale's jaw tightened, her eyes scanning the chaos. Then we fight the mind of a world, she said, and we will not bow to it. They broke through the ruin and into the jungle, but the forest was worse than before. Every shadow moved, every tree bent toward them. From the branches leapt creatures like the one in the ruin. Dozens now, glowing eyes shining in the storm. They came with speed, claws tearing, teeth snapping. The soldiers fired. The jungle burned with light and flame, but for each beast that fell, two more came from the dark. Above the planet, alien ships circled, broadcasting the scene to the entire galaxy. The council chambers filled with gasps, disbelief, and even laughter. They are doomed, hissed a reptilian voice. No species has survived Venar. They should never have gone, clicked an insectoid diplomat. This is their grave, yet still the humans fought. Their line unbroken, their courage burning brighter than the storm. Commander Hale pressed forward, her rifle blazing. She cut down a beast lunging for her crew, then pointed toward a crack in the ground ahead, a massive fissure torn open by the quake earlier, glowing faintly with green light. This way, she ordered. The jungle does not want us near that crack, which means it is hiding something. The crew hesitated, fear in their eyes, but they trusted her, and so they ran toward the glow. The earth shook harder with every step. The storm above twisted into a spiral, lightning striking in lines as if guided by thought. The jungle roared with fury, beasts screaming, trees cracking, roots lashing. Yet through it all, the humans pressed forward. Battered and burned but unbroken, they dove into the fissure, sliding down rock and soil, leaving the storm behind. The cavern below was vast, glowing with the same pale green light. Strange crystals jutted from the walls, humming with energy. The air was heavy, buzzing like static in their bones. And at the center of the cavern lay something impossible, a structure not natural, not random but built. It was ancient, broken, but alive with faint energy. Dr. Miles's eyes widened, his voice trembling. This is not the jungle, this is technology. The planet is not only alive, it was shaped. Controlled. Commander Hale stepped closer, her rifle ready. By who? She asked, her voice low. And why did they leave it behind? No one answered. Because the cavern itself began to move. The crystals pulsed, the ground shivered, and the whispers returned louder than ever. But this time the voices were clear, speaking words the crew could understand. You should not be here, the cavern said. You are not welcome. The crew froze, the realization striking like lightning. It was not ghosts, not madness, not mere jungle. The entire planet was speaking. The world itself was alive, and it was warning them. But humans had never turned back at warnings. They had crossed oceans, climbed mountains, walked the void of space. Warnings were not enough. Commander Hale lifted her chin, her voice steady against the thunder of voices. We are here now, she said, and we will not leave until we know the truth. The cavern rumbled, the crystals flashing bright. The walls shook, dust fell, and deep in the darkness something stirred. Something older than the jungle, older than the ruins, older even than the species that had come before. The humans readied their weapons. The planet had shown its strength, but humanity had not yet shown its will. And so the battle was only beginning. The Deathworld would fight, but so would mankind. The cavern glowed like a heartbeat. The green crystals pulsed brighter with every second, and the voices of the planet whispered through the air. The human crew stood together, weapons raised, their shadows stretching across the ancient walls. Commander Hale scanned the chamber, her sharp eyes searching for patterns, for traps, for anything that explained this impossible place. Dr. Miles moved closer to the strange structure at the cavern's heart. It was tall, cracked by age, covered in roots but still alive with energy. Symbols were carved across its surface, glowing faintly, as if powered by something deep within the world. These are records, Miles whispered, his voice trembling with both fear and wonder. This is a library or a warning. Maybe both. The soldiers spread out, forming a protective circle. Every sound echoed, dripping water, cracking stone, the faint hiss of air from deep tunnels. The jungle above had been loud with screams and storms, but here the silence felt heavier, like the weight of 1,000 dead eyes staring from the dark. Miles brushed away dust from the carvings, and the crystals near him flared with light. Suddenly a projection burst into the air. Holograms shimmered above the crew, ghostly shapes of tall, thin aliens with pale skin and long arms. They stood in rows, their faces sharp, their eyes wide with fear. The humans gasped, realizing these were the builders, the ones who had lived here long ago, the lost species of Venar. The hologram flickered to life, showing scenes like memories. The aliens building cities of crystal and stone, jungles bent to their will, storms controlled by machines. They had ruled the planet once, powerful and proud, but the images shifted, and the story darkened. The skies turned violent. Storms raged beyond control, the jungles twisted. The beasts turned against their masters. The very world they had shaped rose against them, and one by one their cities fell. Their bones scattered, their voices lost. The crew watched in silence as the final image showed the last of the species. They stood together in this very cavern, surrounding the structure, their hands raised in prayer. The ground shook, crystals shattered, and then the projection froze on their faces, eyes full of terror and sorrow. Then it vanished, leaving only the glow of the cavern and the silence of the dead. Miles fell to his knees, his voice breaking. The planet killed them. They tried to control it, but it fought back. It destroyed them. The soldiers exchanged uneasy looks. If an entire species, advanced and powerful, had fallen here, what chance did humanity have? Commander Hale's voice cut through the fear, sharp and unyielding. They tried to rule the world. They tried to chain it. We are not here to rule. We are here to survive, remember that. Her words steadied the crew. But the unease remained. If the planet had memory, if it had will, then it would see humanity as no different than the species before. As if answering their thoughts, the cavern trembled. The crystals cracked with sharp snaps, and the whispers grew louder, no longer distant but pressing into their minds. You are the same, the voices said. You will fall the same way. The crew staggered, some clutching their helmets, their minds assaulted by visions. They saw jungles swallowing cities, skies burning, oceans boiling, all endings of civilizations long forgotten. The planet was showing them their future. Hale stood firm, her hand pressed to her temple, forcing the voices back. We are not them, she said aloud, her voice strong. We are not weak, we do not surrender. Her defiance seemed to anger the cavern. The ground split, and from the cracks poured green light and thick mist. The mist moved like fingers curling around their boots, reaching upward like hands of the dead. One soldier fired into the mist, beams slicing through. But the vapor did not burn, it only thickened. Shapes began to form inside it. Half-alive creatures, twisted bones wrapped in vines. Skeletons of the lost species reanimated by the will of the planet. The dead were rising. The crew formed a defensive circle, weapons blazing. But every fallen shape only dissolved into mist and rose again. The cavern itself was a battlefield, and the enemy was endless. Miles shouted over the chaos, pointing to the structure. It is the source. The energy is feeding the dead. If we can disrupt it, maybe it will stop. Hale did not hesitate. Cover me, she ordered, and charged toward the glowing monolith. The soldiers opened fire in every direction, walls of light and heat keeping the enemy back as Hale ran. She reached the structure, slamming a charge against its cracked surface. The green light flared brighter, voices screamed in fury, and the cavern shook like it would collapse. Hale dove back as the charge exploded, blasting open the monolith. The crystal shattered, the mist shrieked, and the reanimated dead collapsed into piles of dust. Silence followed, broken only by the ragged breathing of the crew. But the victory was not clean. The explosion revealed something deeper inside the structure. Not just stone, not just crystal, but a machine, ancient, massive, still alive with power. Miles' eyes went wide. They did not just build cities, he whispered. They built a guardian, a weapon to make the planet fight for them. The crew stared, realization sinking into their bones. The lost species had not been destroyed by nature alone. They had created their own executioner, a machine that had become one with the world. And it was still alive. The cavern rumbled again, louder than before, the walls cracking, the ground splitting from the depths below. Something began to rise, something vast and terrible. The humans stepped back, weapons raised, their hearts pounding. Whatever had killed the lost species was awakening again, and now it had found new prey. The cavern shook as if the heart of the world was beating beneath their feet. The green crystals along the walls flared so bright the humans had to shield their eyes. The machine inside the broken monolith groaned, gears grinding like thunder. Roots tore away from the stone as something vast began to rise. At first it looked like a mountain shifting, a mass of metal and stone fused together. Then eyes opened, glowing orbs of pale green fire, staring down at the humans like twin suns. The shape pulled free of the earth, a giant form covered in vines and crystal, its chest pulsing with light. It was not simply a machine, it was alive, a creature built by the lost species to guard their world. And now, after thousands of years, it had awakened. The humans froze, breath catching in their throats. No one had ever faced something like this. It towered above them, its steps shaking the cavern. Its voice like rolling storms, intruders, it said. Though it did not speak with a mouth, the words rattled inside their skulls. You are not welcome, you are the same as the others, and you will die the same way. The guardian lifted an arm, a weapon of living stone and steel. A beam of green energy shot out, slamming into the cavern floor. Blasting a crater into the rock, the crew dove for cover. The blast shaking their bones, Hale shouted above the chaos, her voice steady despite the terror around them. Stay moving. Do not give it a clear shot. The soldiers opened fire, beams of light lancing across the cavern, but the guardian's skin shimmered, energy shields deflecting every blast. It roared, the sound ripping through the air, and swung its massive arm. A wall of wind and force hurled the humans back, smashing them against stone. Still they rose, bruised but unbroken. Dr. Miles scrambled behind cover, his hands flying over his scanner. This thing is fused with the planet's systems, he shouted. It is not just a guardian, it is part of Venar itself. Hale fired another volley, her eyes locked on the towering creature. Then if we kill it, the planet fights back harder, she said. But if we don't kill it, we're already dead. The guardian moved again, faster than its size should allow. It smashed through stone pillars, sending shards flying, its every strike shaking the cavern like an earthquake. The humans darted through shadows, firing, distracting, searching for weakness. But the machine was flawless, built to survive, built to win. Above, the galaxy watched the live transmission. In council chambers and warships, aliens stared in shock. This is madness, one muttered. No species can fight a world. Yet still the humans did, refusing to bow, refusing to die. The guardian raised its arm again, gathering light into a burning sphere. The crew braced for death, but Hale saw something. The crystals along its chest flared each time it prepared a strike. The power source was exposed. If only for a moment, she shouted, pointing. Chest, aim for the chest when it charges. The soldiers focused. Every shot timed to the rhythm of the glowing core. When the sphere built again, they unleashed everything. Beams struck the crystal heart, cracks spreading across its surface. The Guardian staggered, roaring in fury, the cavern trembling as dust rained from above. But it was far from defeated. Its arm swung down, smashing the ground. Sending shockwaves through the cavern, one soldier was caught, crushed beneath falling stone, his scream cut short. The crew's hearts burned with anger. But their line did not break. Humans had lost one of their own. And that only made them fight harder, Miles shouted from behind his scanner. The energy core is unstable. If we keep hitting it, it will either collapse or explode. Hale nodded, her eyes cold. Then we finish this. Even if it takes us with it, they pressed forward, dodging blasts, sliding behind stone for cover, firing with everything they had. Each strike weakened the core, each crack spreading like lightning across glass. The Guardian grew desperate, its attacks wild. Tearing apart its own cavern, the wall split, rivers of molten green energy pouring down like fire. Still the humans fought, closer, harder. Refusing to stop finally, Hale herself charged. Running through the chaos, her rifle blazing, the Guardian roared, lifting its weapon to crush her. But she dove, sliding beneath its strike, planting a charge directly against the glowing chest. The world seemed to pause, one heartbeat of silence. Then the explosion tore through the cavern. The Guardian screamed, its voice shaking the stars. Light poured from its chest, its body cracking apart. Stone and steel falling like meteors, it collapsed, crashing into the earth with the force of a mountain falling. The cavern filled with smoke and fire. And then silence. The humans staggered, coughing. Burned and bloodied, but alive. They stared at the broken remains of the Guardian, glowing shards still humming faintly. For the first time since landing on Venar, it felt like victory. But even as relief spread, the ground rumbled again. Miles raised his scanner, his face pale. This was only one, he whispered. There are more, buried deeper. Still sleeping, the crew's hope dimmed. The Deathworld was not finished. The war had only begun, and the galaxy watching now understood a terrifying truth. Humanity would not run, would not surrender. They would fight every Guardian, every storm, every nightmare this world threw at them. Because humans did not fear Deathworlds, they became stronger inside them. The cavern lay in ruins, smoke rising from the shattered body of the Guardian. Its chest was torn open, its green light fading like dying embers. The human crew stood among the rubble, wounded, exhausted, their armor scorched and cracked, but their eyes still burned with defiance because they had survived what no other species dared to face. Above them, the galaxy watched in silence. For the first time in memory, the alien council halls were without laughter. Without whispers of doubt, they had seen humans face a living nightmare, and yet they were still standing. Fear rippled through the stars, but so did respect. Commander Hale leaned against a broken stone. Her breath heavy, she looked over her crew, counting the wounded, remembering the dead. Her voice was steady when she spoke, even though her heart carried the weight of loss. We are still alive, she said, and as long as we live, this fight is not finished. Dr. Miles scanned the cavern floor, his face pale as the data scrolled across his screen. The Guardian we destroyed, he whispered, was only one. There are dozens more, maybe hundreds, buried across the planet, all waiting. The soldiers clenched their fists, their faces grim. They had fought a monster and won, but now they realized the Deathworld had an army hidden beneath its skin. The ground rumbled as if agreeing with Miles. Dust fell from the ceiling, cracks spreading wider, and far below came the sound of movement. Not one sound, but many, heavy and slow. Like giants stirring in their sleep, the humans braced themselves, expecting the cavern to erupt with new enemies. But then the noise faded, the world settling back into silence. The other Guardians were still sleeping for now. Outside, the storm had calmed. The jungle no longer screamed. It was as if the planet itself paused, studying the humans, testing their will. For the first time, Venar had been challenged, and for the first time it had lost. The crew made their way back to the surface, their boots heavy, their bodies aching. When they stepped into the open air, the sky above was still dark, clouds glowing faintly with green. Lightning. but it was quieter, almost respectful. The jungle that had once lashed out now stood still, every tree bending slightly as if bowing. It was not submission, not peace, but recognition. The Deathworld had seen humanity, and it understood they were not prey. In the orbiting stations, alien leaders argued in panic. If they can survive there, they can survive anywhere. One hissed. They are reckless, dangerous. Unstoppable, another snapped, but others were silent, staring with wide eyes, knowing the truth. Humanity had proven something no one else could. They did not bend, they did not break. They stood tall even against a living world. Back on the surface, the crew built camp beside the ruins. Fires burned, weapons were repaired, wounds were tended. Yet even in exhaustion, the humans did not speak of retreat. Their voices were calm, steady, filled with quiet pride. One soldier murmured, "No one will ever believe this," Hale replied firmly. "They will believe because they watched, and because we are still here." The night was long, filled with uneasy silence. Strange eyes glowed from the tree line, but no beasts attacked. Instead, they watched, waiting, learning. The jungle was no longer blindly hostile, it was cautious, curious. The balance between hunter and hunted had shifted. At dawn, the crew gathered, standing together under the stormy sky. Commander Hale raised her voice so all could hear. "This planet is not finished. It has more battles to throw at us, but so do we. Every step we take here is proof that humans do not run, we do not kneel, and we do not surrender." Her words carried across the clearing, and even the jungle seemed to listen. Every soldier stood straighter, their fear still in their hearts. But no longer stronger than their courage, Dr. Miles studied the broken crystals and whispered something the others almost missed. "Maybe the Guardians are not just weapons," he said. "Maybe they are judges, testing who is strong enough to stand here. The lost species failed, but perhaps humanity will not." Hale turned to him, her face unreadable. "Then let them test us again," she said. "We will show them who we are." Far below, the planet stirred once more, a low rumble spreading through the ground. The Guardians slept, but their dreams were restless. The humans looked out across the endless jungle, knowing more battles would come, but also knowing that for the first time in history, a species had landed on the Deathworld, faced its fury, and refused to fall. The galaxy trembled. The stories spread faster than light, whispers of the impossible. The Deathworld that terrified all species has met humanity, and humanity still stands in dark council chambers. Some plotted to contain mankind. Others whispered of alliances, but all agreed on one truth. Humanity was no longer the youngest race. No longer weak, no longer ignored, they were a force. Stubborn, relentless, unbroken. A species that could not be tamed. The Deathworld had fought back with storms, with beasts, with guardians of living stone, and humanity had answered with courage, with unity, with fire. The battle was not over. The war had not even begun, but already the legend was written. On Vanar, the Deathworld, humanity stood tall, and the galaxy would never forget it. The Deathworld was quiet, but not with peace. It was the silence of a predator watching, waiting, choosing its moment. The jungle stood still. The storm above rolled in slow circles. The ground hummed with faint tremors. Vanar had been wounded, but not defeated, and the humans knew it. Commander Hale stood at the edge of the clearing, her rifle across her shoulder. Her crew moved behind her, repairing gear, tending wounds, checking their supplies. Every face carried exhaustion, but also pride. The kind of pride no enemy could crush. They had faced the Guardian and lived, and that alone made them something more than explorers. It made them survivors. Dr. Miles knelt beside the shattered remains of the Guardian. He traced the cracks along the glowing crystal, scanning its fragments. "This was not just a weapon," he murmured. "It was a voice, a memory, a will. It was the planet's hand." He looked up at Hale, fear and awe in his eyes. "If we destroyed one, then the world is already preparing to wake the rest." Hale's gaze did not waver, her voice steady. "Then we will be ready, we will not run. We will face them all if we must." Her words carried the same weight as steel. Unshakable, unbroken, the crew straightened, their weariness fading under the fire of her resolve. Far above, in stations and council halls across the galaxy, the debate raged. Some demanded the humans be recalled. Others argued to quarantine Vanar forever. But none could deny what they had seen for centuries. The alien Deathworld had been a place of fear, a place of whispers and legend. Now it had become the stage where humanity had shown its true face. Messages spread like wildfire, from trade routes to warships, from palaces to slums. The words repeated over and over. The humans walked the Deathworld. The humans did not fall. Aliens who had once laughed at mankind now spoke in hushed voices, some in admiration, others in fear. A new legend was rising, and it carried the name of Earth on the surface. The humans pressed deeper into the jungle. Every step forward was heavy but also steady. The forest did not attack as blindly as before. The beasts stayed in the shadows, watching with glowing eyes, testing, judging. It was as if the entire world was deciding what to make of them. Prey, invaders, or something else. The ruins grew larger the deeper they traveled. Towers half swallowed by trees. Broken bridges spanning rivers of green fire. Statues cracked and leaning under vines. Everywhere the same story was written in stone. The lost species had ruled here, had tried to chain the planet, and in the end the planet had broken them. The bones scattered among roots were proof. Yet the humans walked where they had fallen, step after step refusing to bow one night. While the crew rested by the fire, the whispers returned, but they were different now. Not screams of anger or voices of warning. They were softer, almost curious. Miles lifted his head, eyes wide. "It is speaking to us again," he whispered. But this time it does not sound like hate. The soldiers stirred uneasily, but Hale only listened, her face calm. Perhaps the planet had begun to see what it had never seen before. A species that did not run, that did not break. The next day they reached another cavern, this one larger, glowing brighter inside. Half buried in stone and root, lay another guardian, but it did not rise. It only stared with dim eyes. The crew tensed, weapons ready, but Hale lifted her hand to stop them. "Wait," she said. "It is not attacking." They stepped closer, the cavern humming softly. The guardian's gaze followed them. But no weapon raised, no storm formed. Instead, its chest pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat in rhythm with their own. Miles's voice shook. "It is watching us, learning us, maybe even respecting us." The crew stood in silence, their breaths heavy. The Deathworld that had killed an entire civilization now seemed to hesitate, to study, as if deciding whether humanity was enemy or equal. Outside, the jungle stirred. Winds moved through the trees, carrying whispers across the clearing. The voices rose together, not angry this time, but solemn. The humans could not understand the words, but they understood the weight. It was not a threat, not a curse. It was acknowledgement. Hale stood tall, her eyes fixed on the horizon. She raised her voice, strong and unyielding. "We came here not to rule, not to conquer, but to endure. We do not fear you, and we will not leave. We will stand here as long as we must, until you understand who we are." The cavern glowed brighter. The guardian's eyes burned for a moment, then dimmed once more. The world rumbled, but it was not rage, it was something different. Acceptance. The crew left the cavern, walking back into the endless jungle. The planet did not attack. The storms did not rise. The silence that followed was not the silence of danger, but of respect. Far across the stars, stories spread faster than light. Children of distant worlds whispered them. Soldiers repeated them. Rulers feared them. The words became legend. The Deathworld rose against humanity, and humanity stood tall. The Deathworld tried to break them, and failed on Venar, the alien Deathworld. The soil still pulsed. The jungle still whispered. The guardians still slept, but now, their silence carried a new meaning. For the first time, the planet had found a species that did not flee, and for the first time, the galaxy saw what humanity truly was. Not fragile, not weak, not prey, but unbroken. And from that day forward, the legend of humanity was written not in words, but in fire, storm, and stone. A legend that would never be forgotten.